Nurse.org and Major League Sports teams are honoring nurses with discounted game tickets and once-in-a-lifetime experiences. From throwing the first pitch to riding the Zamboni to on-court recognition, join the fun. Visit nurse.org/nurse night to find a nurse appreciation event near you and grab your discounted tickets today. You're listening to Nurse Converse, presented by Nurse.org, a collaborative podcast amplifying diverse nurse voices. Get ready for a dose of inspiration, a sprinkle of education, and a whole lot of community.
Hey there, nurses. Hey there, nurses. Welcome to another great episode of Nurse Converse on the Nurse.org podcast, and I am absolutely super excited to be here today. I'm Advocate Maggie. I've been a nurse for roughly about 25 years, and I love that Nurse.org is inviting, just the everyday nurse. I've been, I've done various different things from, ICU, ER, pre-op, PACU, endo, IR, cath lab, and then I did spend some time at a board of nursing. So in today's episode, the focus is going to be around what every nurse should know about a board of nursing investigation. My short time at a board really did open my eyes. And I think that all nurses need to know and understand about the process. And I've dedicated now my life to doing this through oftentimes education, advocacy. So in the Nurse.org article that I've had the honor of writing, Board of Nursing Investigations, what every nurse needs to know and handle and how to handle, I dive into just the basics. It can be very, very overwhelming. We don't really get taught about the rules and regulations, I feel, in huge depth in nursing school. We're so involved in the nursing process and care plans and medical terminology that it's unfathomable. We're not criminals. So we learn what we need to know for the test as it pertains to anything legal, but we're not criminals. So we don't dwell there. I have found over the last decade, as I've been helping nurses and their legal teams, when a nurse is under investigation, and I've been studying administrative law, that not knowing the rules and regulations as it pertains to your license when there's a board of nursing complaint is a big, huge deal. It causes the nurse a lot of stress. It's no different if we teach a patient about diabetes. When they get diagnosed with diabetes or COPD or insert any other disease process, what are we doing? We're giving them education. We're providing them with resources to understand and better manage the condition. It's no different when a nurse is under investigation. So the bulk of what I do and what I'm going to be doing here with Nurse.org on this podcast series is talking to you about the process of being under investigation. So if you haven't gone over to Nurse.org and checked out that article, please get on over there and check it out. I highly suggest that you do. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to briefly go over some processes as if you would be under investigation by a board of nursing. First and foremost, oftentimes it's on the dreaded Saturday, and who are you going to call? You go to your mailbox, and there it is in the mail, a certified letter from the Board of Nursing. So that's how the process starts. Someone filed a complaint. It could be your job. It could have been a patient. Anyone is allowed to file a complaint to the Board of Nursing. The Board of Nursing's mission is to protect the public. The Board of Nursing's mission is there to protect the public. I don't think I fully really appreciated that until I was within that agency. So let that sink in. That's their duty, their mission. All the rules, regulations that are put into place are to protect the patients. So if you get a complaint from a board of nursing, this entity is there to protect the public, and why you need to understand the process and why you need to get administrative lawyers. So first and foremost, when you get that letter on a Saturday and you're opening it up and you're reading the words that you can't even begin to understand on or about this date, this time while you are working, and then I hear nurses say, I just stopped reading because it's just so overwhelming. So the next step that you're going to do is you're going to call your professional liability insurance company that I hope that you all have. I teach about this in my charting course. I written about this on Nurse.org. Nurse.org has articles as well about this. We talked about this on the Instagram live as well. So make sure you get on over to Nurse.org's Instagram live as well. They have resources, but yet you're going to call the administrative lawyer and you're going to say, I just got a letter from the Board of Nursing that says, and you're just going to read to them what it says. You're going to interview them just like you would a doctor, a mechanic, any other person that you would be hiring to, defend your professional license. You're hiring someone, this is your livelihood. So you need to make sure you're interviewing multiple providers, lawyers, administrative lawyers, and that you're fully comfortable with the person that you're hiring. So you call around, you find legal counsel. You're going to have to respond to the Board of Nursing more often than not within 30 days. Now, every state is different. The information that I'm providing you is basic information. And I always suggest nurses get on over to the National Council for State Boards of Nursing, where they have a video that's under investigation that I highly, highly, highly suggest that every nurse watch, because the more that you know and you understand about the process, the less likely that you are to stand there and have to defend your professional practice. So I highly suggest starting with under investigation video on the National Council for State Boards of Nursing. So you got a lawyer, you've read your letter, you're going to have to actually read it. They're going to want you to provide some basic information about where you've worked, how long you've been a nurse, some things around the event or depending on what has happened. And that's what you're going to be discussing with your legal team, because if it was a DUI and it wasn't related to possibly interactions with the patient, your defense is just going to be a little bit different. The evidence that you and your lawyer are going to ask for, because that will be the other thing. When you reach out to the lawyer, you're going to go over what the allegations are, and then you're going to be asking for your full and complete file so that you can give a robust response looking at what's, in the record. Now, if you had the DUI, let's go back to that example. I think you're going to be real clear because you do have all the criminal records about, what the evidence is going to be. If it was something you were, clocked into your 9 to 5, you were taking care of a patient. Let's just say you gave 3 milligrams of morphine and it was only for 1 milligram of morphine. They're going to be getting the evidence that they're going to be getting is some of the obvious stuff that we already know as a nurse. The MAR, progress note, pain scale. Those are the things that they're going to want to get. Something from the Pyxis, the Omnicell. So that will be part of the evidence that you and your attorney will be looking at to provide your robust response. Within 30 days, you're going to be following the guidance of the lawyer. And of course, this is the place where oftentimes a nurse and their legal team will reach out to me so I can help provide some education. I provide some nuances oftentimes. I'll say, hey, you probably need to define what the Pyxis or the Omnicell is, because I see the investigator is not a nurse. So let's get some of that research so the nurse and the legal team provide a little bit more context as it pertains to that, taking the lens out a little bit to help paint the picture of what happened. Or I might say, hey, let's look at the map of the floor. Ask for the map of the floor as well. Which patients did you have? Because why did you fail to respond? I had 3 patients in wing 4 that was 2 floors down. Paint the picture of, what happened that you're not going to necessarily remember 2 years from now. So an investigation can take 2 to 3 years. Every state does have to report how long the average investigation is. So you can go to your Board of Nursing website to see how long those take. Everyone has an opportunity to respond. The records have to come from the organization. They have to be subpoenaed. They have 30 days. You have 30 days. If you need more time to respond, you and your legal team need more time to respond, then you're going to be asking for more time to respond. The investigator or the board has how many cases that they're reviewing. The investigator, I had 200 to 300 cases. So do you see where that all can take some time? So you get with your legal team. This can be very stressful. You understand the process. Anyone can file a complaint. That's one of the questions that oftentimes is asked the lawyer and myself. when we're breaking down, you get the letter, the next question oftentimes like, where did this come from? Sometimes you already know. Sometimes there was already a bad outcome. You knew this was coming. Oftentimes the nurse reaches out, the legal team reaches out, and the nurse was like I had no idea. This was 15 years ago, and I'm getting, separated from my partner, and they all of a sudden decided to report this event that I told them about within the organization, and now here we are. There is no statute of limitations when it comes to most boards of nursing. So why you have legal counsel helping you go through this, because you've slept since even you took care of someone 3 days ago, 5 days ago. Now this is 6 months ago. So you want to have the medical record, you want to have everything, but anyone can file a complaint and the board has to look into it, um, because their duty is there to protect the public. And I talk about this more on the Nurse.org article, so make sure you check that out. And as we move along, some of the processes that I'm just going to go over, this is very basic. This is by no means the exact process in your respective state. And it's your duty, it's your responsibility that if you are sent a letter and you're under investigation, that you understand the process. The board of nursing is expecting they more often than not send information about the process in the certified letter. It's oftentimes a pamphlet, a handout, a direction to the board of nursing, to the website about the process. So they're expecting you to know and understand the process. So this is by no means this is just the short and skinny. I'm going to do a series, and I'm bringing you a unique insider look at what it looks, what the process looks like. I was under enforcement. I was an investigator. I've been a civil expert. I've been a legal nurse. Oftentimes nurses don't know about the rules and regulations does harm them. So I am very much about you going to your own state board of nursing and even watching that video if you get a letter from a board of nursing.
Hey nurses, looking for exclusive discounts? Nurse.org has you covered with deals on everything. Save big on the essentials you need to excel in your career. Don't miss out. Visit nurse.org/discounts for the latest discounts made just for you.
So as we move through the article, we talked about who can file a complaint. I talked about how long the process can take. Let's talk about some of the basic things that can happen over that 2 to 3 years. You and your lawyer, like I talked about, are going to be going over your response to the allegations, even if it gets down to you did do some of this, but what they're writing is not accurate. Your attorney is going to be, rewriting the allegations. You're going to be looking at the evidence, bringing that forward, and you might be doing that in an informal conference. So that may be something in your state that you ask for to help work out some of these nuances that couldn't be explained possibly on paper. Culture, workflow, bullying, who knows? There's no shortage of nuances I've seen over like the last decade as it pertains to when a nurse is, going through this process, because we've all, and the majority of us here are nurses. Our work environments are so unpredictable. Who knows what was possibly happened? 3 people were coding, and yeah, I failed to respond. But let's talk about the other 3 people that were coding that I did say that was. But you see what I mean? Those are nuances that could be worked out in that informal conference. Who's going to be at the informal conference? Oftentimes, again, these are nuances. You need to look at your own state. This is a basic overview. One, in my own state, would have been myself, the board attorney, the executive director for the board of nursing, some consultants, the nurse, their legal team, possibly some other investigators. And there's back and forth with the nurse being asked questions. So tell me about what was happening and why did you give that 3 milligrams of morphine and not the 1 milligram? Well, I did. If you look on page 54 in the MAR, it shows you right now our computers were down. And the scanners were down. So we wasted it here because we weren't able to. But that's your opportunity to break it down to whatever it is. We were down in MRI and the patient was coding, and I was given verbal orders to give repeat doses of the drug. But those are nuances in the informal conference that your legal team will be able to go back and forth with to figure out like, okay, I understand now. Now there could be things that come to fruition and additional allegations or charges could be added on at that point. That's also a possibility. But that's why you have your legal team there with you. So at the end of the informal conference, the goal is to have some kind of better understanding of what's happening, and that you both have an agreement of, I, didn't do that. This is going to be dropped, or I did do that. This is what happened, but we're going to reword this. We're going to take off this, or this gets added because now that we're asking you, trying to clarify, it does appear that there were other deviations from the standard of care. So these may be some other violations. That's sent to the legal team and or the nurse. If you have a legal team, then it's always sent to your legal team. If you don't, but you should always have a legal team, especially you should never be going into an informal conference by yourself. No, you need to have an administrative lawyer sitting there with you while you're doing that. But then that will be represented oftentimes in agreed order, some kind of written form, formal charges. But that's something you're going to go over with your lawyer. The next option in most states is a mediation. It's exactly what you think it is. You're mediating, you're going back and forth. There's a mediator, oftentimes a judge, and the goal of the end of that is that you're leaving with something that is doable. The board's going to, come to the table and say, okay, we understand that you were coding 3 people. We're going to remove that violation or reword this. You're going to say, okay, thank you, whatever it is. I want to ask for that to be reworded. I want this violation maybe offered up, because if we don't do that, that's going to put me on the National Practitioner Database or the OIG, because it's tied to patient abuse. And then I will have a problem even working out my orders. So can we offer up this? But the objective of the mediation is just that. And in the article, on Nurse.org, I go into some of these nuances, and over the next course of these articles and doing the podcast, these are things that I'm going to break down. The next option would be, in most states, would trial for a nurse. State Office of Administrative Hearing, aka a trial, where it's kind of the same situation. You're telling your side of the story, you're going over the evidence, you're producing the evidence. Now the board has an expert there as well, or the agency that giving you the privilege to practice that has written up a report pointing out the deviations of the standard of care and the violations. It's going to be in written form. The last report I saw, I think, was 28 pages long, but they set the standard of care. They're the subject matter expert. You're not. The nurse under investigation is not the subject matter expert. A subject matter expert will be providing a report, will be deposed as well, will be given testimony on the deviations that they say that you did in whatever care or what's ever being presented to the board of nursing at that point. At the end of that, the administrative judge in that situation gets to provide a proposed decision. It's not a final say. The board offers up something that, if you do not take, could lead to the revocation of the license. Now, can there be some possible negotiations at that point with some rewording of some things? And yes, and this is why your legal team should be involved, because you could say, hey, the allegation, maybe the date's wrong, maybe the wording of it's wrong. Those are all things with the legal team that they're going back and forth with the board of nursing legal team or the entity giving you the privilege to practice, to make sure that that legal document is completely accurate before you sign it. There may be violations, probation. What does that look like? It depends. And we're going to go into that. And I go into that in the article. It could be dropped. That's the best case scenario, right? It goes nowhere. They look into it and they say, you know what? There were absolutely no deviations of standard of care. We can see that. It's dismissed. It could be where you get a warning with stipulations. What are stipulations? Classes, a fine, supervised, unsupervised, working days. There's going to be all things that are listed out very succinctly about what you can and cannot do, the length of time, down to a single state to practice. If you live in a compact state and you have a compact license, they take you down to a compact for the duration of the period of your probationary period. So if it's 2 years, then your compact is removed for 2 years. If you meet all the criteria for your orders, then I've never seen a nurse not get back their compact if they met all the criteria in their orders. And I'm trying to use language that's easy to understand, but these are just basics about the process. It can be very stressful for a nurse and the education. I'm very much, I'm big on that. That's why I created all kinds of resources that are on my website about being under investigation. The National Council of State Boards of Nursing, I've said this now how many times, has a video. Make sure that you watch that. I think every nurse should watch that. It's under investigation. It breaks it down so that you understand. And I think that every nurse, we do not learn this enough in school, because when we're in school, we're learning care plans, we're learning nursing diagnoses, we're drowning in stuff that we're not worried about anything legal because we're not criminals. Why would we dwell here? We don't. What do I need to know for the test? That's what we reproduce for the test. And then when something does happen, we can't recall that because it's just not reviewed enough. So I provide educational resources. Like I said, your board of nursing, every board of nursing has the process oftentimes in written form on the website in the frequently asked questions that's easier to understand. So of course they have it on their website, but on the frequently asked questions, it may be in a fashion that's easier to understand, because oftentimes the rules and regulations are written in graduate level. The NCLEX is written in 10th grade level. Now you're under investigation and it can be very confusing. So go to the frequently asked questions where it might be easier for you to understand, as well as going to, again, I'm going to say this 12 times, the National Council of State Boards of Nursing, and review that video about being under investigation. They have a transcript as well that you can download. It's in PDF form. But the more that you know and you understand, if you follow me, I'm on every platform. This is knowledge is power. The more that you know and understand about nursing, about the investigative process, the last place that you ever want to be is there. So I highly suggest that you have a general understanding about that process, because you never want to be there, that you get yourself professional liability insurance. Start with your own car, home insurance. Call them. They oftentimes underwrite for professional liability insurance. So you would just call them and say, hey, insert whatever, home insurance you have. I'm a nurse. I work in critical care. I am an entrepreneur. I own a business. Whatever your words are, you would want them to know all that. And then they'll say, okay, well, it looks like, you'll need this amount of insurance for all intents and purposes. And now I'm way out of my wheelhouse. But that's why you're reaching out to them and asking them, because they're going to read you all that stuff, and you're going to, align your insurance coverage to what it is that you're doing. If you're working in some of these higher risk areas, labor and delivery, which that litigation can go up to 18 years. So when you're working as a bedside nurse, these are things that you need to be thinking about, making sure that when you have the professional liability insurance, you're letting them know, I work in labor and delivery, which can be a higher litigious area for very obvious reasons, I should hope, right? Because there's a mom and there's a baby. So get yourself professional liability insurance. Tell them what you do and protect yourself. Oftentimes, this is less than 2 Starbucks a month. I mean, let's be real. Is your professional license, worth that? Call your car insurance company and say, hey, do you underwrite for an LPN in assisted living? Do you underwrite for an RN in a long-term care facility? Do you underwrite for a nurse practitioner? They more likely than not underwrite for the licensed independent practitioners, nurse practitioners, doctors. It's more important for the LPN, for the RN to ask those questions, to make sure that if you're involved in any kind of litigation, that you're going to want an expert nurse who's going to be able to give their opinion, opine on what you should or should not have done, because they're going to have one. But if they don't underwrite for that, and let's just say the expert charges $400 an hour, 250, 900, whatever it is, because say you're that nuanced, and that expert on that, an expert can charge, and these are average, rates, those kind of rates. And now that will be out of your pocket. That's why you want the professional liability insurance, just like it's with a deductible. Something falls on your house, on your car, that could cost you lots and lots and lots of money, but you have the insured, so it's your deductible, so it's not grossly unaffordable. So extend yourself the courtesy of getting your professional liability insurance. I talk about some of this in the article. I talk about this on all my platforms. So make sure you get on over to Nurse.org. You give them a follow, you give me a follow, and you check out the article. I go into much more detail. I love, 7 pages. So I hope that it's informative. As I always say, knowledge is power and advocacy is protection. And that's why I created Advocates for Nurses. I'm the CEO and founder. I truly believe through knowledge uh, and entrepreneurship. I'm going to be highlighting nurses at Vive who are entrepreneurs, who are helping to fill the gaps through not only tools but education, like myself, to ensure that when you do show up to the bedside, or even whatever you're doing, it may not be to the bedside. I have seen, if we're going to go into some of these nuances, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're a remote nurse, telehealth, whatever it is you're doing as a amazing nurse that you are, the more knowledge, the more that you know and you understand about your professional license, even as an entrepreneur, and you use some of these tools to make your environment more safe, you're protecting yourself. Knowledge is just so very powerful. So I have resources on my website helping you to understand the investigative process, charting to protect your professional license. As well, I have 2 charting courses, charting to protect your professional license for a CE, and then one around surgical services. Because what have I found and what have I told you over, let's just say, the last almost 26 minutes or so? They're going to be looking at evidence. They're going to be subpoenaing, more often than not, the medical record, words you wrote. And if you didn't write anything, that's a problem. What you do write, we need to make sure that it protects you. You need to make sure that you're utilizing the tools within your environment. Um, Epic, using, let's just say, like a template, a smart phrase, so that you are protecting yourself. And these are things that on Nurse.org, all these nurse creators who, they've been asked, like myself, to contribute, along with the articles that I'm writing and other nurses are writing to help educate nurses. I'm so honored to be part of this contributing group. Please make sure that you get on out there. If you're going to be in Nashville or you're going to the Vive conference, I will be there. I'll be, like I said, highlighting the nurse innovators, creators, the nurse scientists, engineers, because what we do is matter. Knowledge is power. Advocacy is protection. And stay safe out there, nurses.
Thanks for joining Nurse Converse, brought to you by Nurse.org. Help us grow by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Nurse.org supports nurses with career and education tips, life advice, and breaking news. Thank you for all you do and for being you.